baking bread, it reminds me of the mother's cooking. But I think for me, it's the sense of touch that does it. Just the thought of a certain texture can take me back to a moment like a rough line fishing did as it slides through my fingers. No matter how old I get or how far away I am from the lake, I'll never forget how it feels to tie a knot in that line and then to hold a fishing net. And when it's your livelihood, you learn to tie those knots very quickly and very carefully. That's what I was doing when I first heard these voices. I was tying the knots. My brother was taking up the line, keeping from getting tangled. It's not a fun job, but it's really important. We begin to hear that wilderness preacher speak all the time. Oh, he was captivated. Wild hair, strange garments. He told us to be watching for the Messiah, that he was close. He told us to watch, so I was watching. We had heard about the rumors about the potential rulers, the conquerors, and those that claimed to be the deliverer. But I didn't know how I was supposed to figure out who it was. And I didn't know what to do, even if I figured it out. And then it happened. That day, we were anchored in our boat just off the shore, my brother and I, working hard to mend the nets. And I heard a voice from the shore say, "Follow me." I can't explain to you how that hit me that day. I didn't just hear it, I felt it. So I looked back at the man standing on the shore, and again, he looked back at me and said, "Follow me." It wasn't harsh. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation. It was an opportunity. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was a promise. So I let the net fall, and I followed him. The next 3 years went by so fast. Much of it's like a blur now. But I still remember how some things felt. I remember how it felt stooping down and picking up some mud when he mixed saliva and dirt. And he stepped forward and he wiped into the blind man's eyes. It just felt like regular mud to me. But when he used it, he made the blind man see. I remember reaching in the basket and picking out the last piece of bread. My fingers scrubbed the bottom of the basket, only to reach back in and find there's still more there. I remember the hungry hands grabbing for the bread that just seconds ago, it didn't even exist. I remember picking up a piece of the broken jar that once felt that expensive perfume, rubbing my finger along the sharp edge while he spoke gently to the young woman who just poured the perfume out. I remember feeling my shoulder leaning against him as the 13-year-old lounged around the table last night. I remember reaching out for him too late. His coat pulled through my fingers and the soul ran away. I remember. What will I remember about today? I remember how it felt when his mother rested her head on my shoulder. The warmth of her quiet tears soaked through my cloak. I remember how she trembled as he spoke to both of us. just as clear. First to his mother, and then to me. Woman, behold your son. Behold your mother. In his last words, in the dark shadows of loneliness, he reminds us we're not meant to be alone. He reminds us of our need for each other. We are to be woven together just like the net, depending upon the strength of another to mend those broken places. And working together for His purpose. I will.
Amen.
Let us stand together for our scripture reading. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. Now, it is the gatekeeper who opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he has brought out all of his own, he goes ahead of them. And the sheep follow because they know his voice. So again, Jesus said to them, "Verily, truly, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. I am the good shepherd. I am the good shepherd who lays down his life for his sheep." The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Heavenly Father, bless this reading of the word, that as we continue in this time today, we will continue in your grace and in your glory. For it is in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit that we pray. Amen. You may be seated. How many people remember having a private number? A private phone number? You remember that? When your phone number was unlisted? How many of you still have an unlisted phone number? Anybody still have one? How many people still have a landline in their house? There's still a few. But a lot of us have gone totally to cell phones. And when we first got our cell phones, do you remember there was a time when you first had a cell phone that the only people who knew your phone number were the people you gave it to? Because they didn't publish them anywhere. They didn't make them known. The wonderful thing about a cell phone, no robocalls. Those days have come and gone also, because I don't know about you, and I'm not sure how my name got on that list, but I get robocalls all the time now. But if you remember many years ago, long before cell phones, not only did we have private numbers, but we also had party lines. Y'all remember having a party line? Where there were multiple people on the phone? As I told the 8:30 this morning, when I was growing up in Woodbury, Kentucky, there were two elderly ladies who, on every Sunday they would catch up with one another. So at 2 o'clock on Sunday morning, on Sunday afternoon, they began talking. And you knew that somewhere between 4 and 5-ish, the phone was absolutely unusable, because these two ladies were going to be talking to one another and were going to be catching up on everything that had gone on for the past week. And you'd pick up the phone and you could listen for a second, and then you'd realize they were still talking and you'd hang up. And you just kind of got to where you learned that somewhere around 4 o'clock, you could begin checking the phone to see if you could use it again. Somewhere between 4 and 5, they finally stopped talking and someone else could actually use the phone. You remember dialing 0 for the operator? I remember doing that. Many years ago I was talking about that, and I made that little motion. I said something about dialing 0 for the operator, and I did that, and Kimberly looked at me and said, "What's that?" And it dawned on me she'd never seen a rotary phone. They were long gone. By the time she actually remembers phone, they were long gone, and Mom and Dad both were using cell phones. Now, the one thing interesting about Sherry and I, believe it or not, we have the exact same cell phone number that we have had since 1994. Our cell phone number has not changed. As a matter of fact, the cell phone number I have now that's listed on the bulletin is the very first cell phone number I was ever given. I've never changed my cell phone number.
I get irritated with my voice because every time I turn around, I get a phone call from a different phone number, and as I answer it, and if you're like me, most of the time, if you don't know the number, you don't answer the number. Ever done that? Because you usually figure it's a robocall. I'll answer the phone, and on the other line, I get, Dad, I decided to change my phone number again. This is my new number. And I'm like, really, guys? Well, I'm not sure why you keep doing this. But I asked you about private phones because as I was working on this and as we were working on the season of Lent and the monologues that go with the next several weeks of Lent, the same thing that kept coming to me as I read that monologue of John constantly saying, I remember, is that voice that speaks to us that helps us to remember. That still, small voice that speaks to us in amazing ways that the moment we hear it, we begin to remember interesting and wonderful things. How many of you remember cassette tapes? Anybody know someone who still repairs cassette tapes? For many years I had a cassette tape that it was one of the last summers my father ever purchased. And I kept playing it until it finally wore out, and it won't play at all now. We finally got rid of it because it just simply would not make any noise. But I used to set it and put it into an actual cassette recorder. I actually kept cassette recorders for years. And I would play that tape just to hear that voice. Just to hear that voice speaking. There's something about hearing a voice that you know and that you remember that takes you to places that are just unbelievable. For several years after my father passed away, my mother did not change the answering machine. And she didn't change it for the simple fact that when she was having a bad day, she'd walk by and she'd hit play on a message, and she could hear Dad's voice. There's something about that voice that just brought back a flood of memories. And she remembered things that just brought a joy to her soul. Can you imagine what the voice of Jesus must have sounded like? That he could walk up to John and his brothers standing there at the ship and mending their nets and their entire lives as fishermen, and that all he said was follow me. And they dropped everything they were doing and followed Jesus. Can you imagine what that voice must sound like? It has to be a unique voice, because the moment they heard it, they knew that they were being called by the Messiah, by the Son of God. They knew they were being called by a voice they had never heard before, and by a voice that would never mislead them. Matter of fact, for the majority of the disciples, when he walked by and he spoke to them, all he said was, follow me. And they dropped everything they were doing, and they followed him. Did you know that most of the disciples were rich men? They were not poor people. John, talking about mending the nets and everything, he says that he was with his father and the servants. How many of you can afford a butler or a maid? Anybody? They could. They did so well at fishing that it wasn't just John and his brothers and his dad who fished. They actually had hired people that helped them fish. They were successful fishermen. Matthew, the tax collector, the very fact that he was a tax collector tells us he was a rich man. None of the tax collectors were poor people. And yet Jesus simply said, follow me. And he dropped everything he was doing, repented of his ways, and followed Jesus. Can you imagine what that voice must sound like? And all he says is, follow me. And they stop everything they're doing, and they follow him. Today's scripture, Jesus tells us, I am the good shepherd. The sheep know my voice. There was a video I was wanting to share with you this morning, but I could not get it to download it. Everything just seemed to not want me to have that video this morning. But if you know anything about sheep, one of the things about sheep is they absolutely hate water. Sheep despise water with a passion. It's why they stink. If you've ever been around sheep, you know they stink. Oh, they are horrendous smelling creatures. They smell that way because they refuse to get wet. Can't stand water. There's a video on YouTube of this shepherd who is calling the sheep, and she's very intentional that as she calls the sheep, she steps to the other side of the creek. And between her and the sheep, there's this water. And the sheep come running because they hear the shepherd's voice. They know her voice. They know she would never take them any place that they shouldn't go. And they come running and they get right up to the edge of the creek, and they literally stop so fast that the sheep in the back run into the sheep in the front, and they kind of stumble in the water and they jump off to get out of the water immediately. And they stand there and they watch her as she just stands there. And she begins to call them, and y'all seen animals that want to do something but they're scared to do it. They just kind of, that little lurch that they keep, they're standing there and you can tell they want to go so bad, but there's water, and she ain't water. So she calls them again. And they stand there and they just kind of hesitate for a second, and then you see the first sheep jump over, and then the second, and within just a few minutes all of the sheep jump over the water, because they know that voice, and they know that voice would never lead them somewhere they shouldn't go. And if that voice is calling, it's okay to even cross the water. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. My sheep know my name, and they know my voice. And when they hear my voice, they will know to follow me. I'll grant you we cannot physically hear his voice today as if he was standing in front of us or that we were having a conversation in life with him. But let me tell you, the voice that Jesus still speaks to us today, it's called the Holy Scriptures. Jesus still speaks to us in such a way that is so clear and so plain that it's absolutely amazing that we spend as little time listening as we did. For every time we pick up the Scriptures, every time we take just a moment to begin to read the Bible, we begin to hear the voice of the shepherd that calls to us and says, follow me. We begin to hear the voice that talks about how much he loves us and his grace and his mercy that will never, ever, ever leave us or take us to a place that is too dangerous. Jesus says, I am the gate at which they come in. Whenever you gather sheep together, the most dangerous place for sheep is the gate, because if there's any opening, then predators can come in, and if you're not aware of it, sheep have no natural defenses whatsoever. The only defense a sheep has is the shepherd. That's it. And if the shepherd puts them inside of a gate, then the fence is their only protection. Jesus says, I am the one that sits at that gate. In the old days, whenever they would take sheep outside of the farm at nighttime to keep them safe from animals, they would build rock walls and they would surround the sheep with rocks that they had picked up, and they would put sticks and thorns and everything else across the top of the rocks so that predators wouldn't jump over. But here's the problem. How do you make a gate in a fence that's made out of rocks? They left an opening. What closed that opening was the shepherd. That's where the shepherd lay down. That's where the shepherd slept. Literally, the shepherd was the gate. Jesus says, I am the gate. I will suffer and die before I let you be touched. And he died on the cross that we would be saved. Whatever may be going on in your life today, whatever the condition may be, whatever the circumstances may be, 2,000 years later, Jesus says the same thing to us. I want to be your shepherd. I want to be the voice that you remember and that you follow, and that all of the other voices are irrelevant, minus the only one that matters. If your life is falling apart, I want to be the shepherd that leads you back to a good path, to a place of abundance and of safety. If you've never known the Good Shepherd, I want you to be good. I want to be that voice that you hear, that when you hear the voice of the shepherd, you know this voice is the same voice. You know, we live in a time in a world where there's 1,000,001 voices that are pulling at every one of us. And most of them do not have our best interest at heart. Amen? Jesus always protects, always has our best interest, and always, always saves. And he speaks through the Word of God. He He speaks through Sunday school teachers. He speaks through people in the children's church. He speaks through pastors and preachers all around the world. He speaks through friends who, when you're having a bad day, shares a Bible verse with you or just allows you some kind of, out of all the monologue in John, there were 2 verses that say just absolutely say so much to me. When he says that I remember laying my head on the breast of Jesus during the last meal. I don't know about you, but that brings an image to mind that just makes you smile. And then he says that there at the cross, Mary laid her head on his chest as she wept, and he comforted her. Folks, that's the image of our Savior. He leads and guides and speaks to us in amazing ways and takes us to amazing places. And when we're absolutely convinced we cannot go one more step, he says, lay your head on me. Rest in me, and I will give you strength. Heavenly Father, you know the strength that is needed by each one that is here this morning. You know what is going on in their life, you know the needs, you know the confusion, the chaos that may be overwhelming them today. You know the condition of each soul that is here today. Whether they've heard your voice calling to them or whether they're still seeking for that voice. You've heard their cries, the pain, their fears. Father God, touch each one that is here this morning. Let them hear that voice in their soul that they never forget, that they can say, I remember that voice. I remember when it called me to the kingdom of God. I remember when it called me to salvation. I remember when it called my family to be together. Lord God, for each one that is here this morning, for all of us, let us examine our heart ourselves. If there are places where we need you to be the gate, where we are weak and struggle to even have strength, that you come and you are the gate to protect those problems, those hurts, those agonies in our body. And that you become the gate that protects us. Lord God, look upon us this morning. See us for the children in need that we are. And let us feel your mighty presence meeting those needs. But it's in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Our hymn this morning is Greatly Leads Me, I Will Follow. Would you please stand as we sing together?
Follow me.
Marty and Sandra there coming to join, asking to be received into membership at Rogersville United Methodist Church this morning. If you would receive the membership, say aye. Aye. If you'd like to come and stand in support of them as we bring them into membership, please come join them down front at this time. If you would join me right here in front.